And we are live. What's going on YouTube Live? It is your boy Billy Rowe. Today is Wednesday. I'd like to welcome you to the first row. And if it is Wednesday, you should know what that means. It's time for the Wednesday word. That's Wednesday word. Jumping straight into it. Tonight's topic is gossip's reflection, ownership, apostrophe S. What do I mean by that topic? I always like to share what I mean by my topic. So, what do I mean by the topic gossip's reflection? What I really am talking about is how when we gossip or when we interact with gossipers, what it does is it really exposes some of our shortcomings and really begins to tell more about us than or the other person than the actual person that is being gossiped about. So tonight I have three tools for you, three tools for the first row that will help you really address this gossip's reflection and put you in a better space to be able to navigate how to vent, we'll call it how to vent versus gossip. So jumping straight into it, the very first tool that I came up with when it comes to gossip's reflection is let's be clear as to what gossip is. And really, I started off with calling this call it what it is, but it's really about being clear on what gossip is. So I kind of alluded to this in the beginning. When we think about gossip, what we typically say are things like, oh, I'm venting, or oh, I'm just complaining, or I'm just informing you. We use all these different words to kind of avoid the word gossip. Hey, what's going on, Carolyn? And really, what that does is it minimizes what we're doing. And by minimizing it, it means you're not calling it gossip, you're calling it something else. And what happens is because we are minimizing this activity or this behavior of gossip, we don't hold ourselves accountable to it. And because we're not accountable to it, we kind of get into this habit of gossiping. And it's not that sharing information is bad. It's not even that complaining is bad if you're working on coming up with a solution. We call that issue identification. However, when you're just gossiping, there really is no benefit besides you're just kind of like when I was a kid, we would call it tattletelling. You're just kind of tattletelling. And we'll say 9 times out of 10, the information that you're sharing is not even your information when you're gossiping. You're typically sharing somebody else's information who's not present. And so being clear as what gossip is, again, it holds us accountable. It puts us in a place to where we now have to actively decide if we're going to gossip. And there's some consequences that come with that. I have learned for myself to be very transparent when people decide that they want to come to me and gossip about things, especially when when they're gossiping to me about somebody that we both mutually know. I've become completely transparent and I'm just like, hey, look, before you continue on down this path, let's be clear. At the end of this conversation, we're going to have a conversation about how you're going to bring this to this person's attention if they're complaining about something. Because other than that, you're just telling me something that you yourself are not willing to address. And then not only do I tell them we're going to come up with that solution, I give them a timeline. I just recently had to do this with my son with something I was dealing with him, where he wasn't gossiping, but I was like, hey, look, now that we've had this conversation, this is how much time I'm willing to give you before I disclose that conversation to the other party. And really, that's when you're clear, like not in his situation, but when you're clear on what gossip is and calling gossip what it is, you can hold people to the mat and say, hey, look, I don't want to engage with that. At the end of the day, I don't have a whole bunch of time to be trying to get information about other people's lives. This is a long way of gossip, by the way, about other people's life that doesn't pertain to me and doesn't either edify or build the strength of the connective tissue of that relationship with that person. So that's tool number one. And actually, I've had that transparency used on me recently. And what it did was it prompted me, instead of complaining, gossiping, instead of complaining about an interaction in a relationship that I currently have, my friend was like, hey, so you need to set up a conversation with this person and talk to them about what it is that's frustrating you. So that was one of the things, even in creating this content, where I had to become really intentional and set that appointment to say, hey, look, I need to talk to you about some things to get some things off my chest. What that does is it not only protects the relationship, whether you keep the relationship or not, but it also protects the mental bandwidth that you have available to process more meaningful things than things that you choose not to address. So that's tool number one. Be clear as to what gossip is. Call it what it is. Don't try to dance around it and say you're venting or you're sharing or you're informing. No, it's you're gossiping. If there's no clear intent to truly help fix or resolve the situation, then honestly, you're gossiping. And that's something that you could be, that energy that you're using to gossip could be used to serve a better purpose. So that's tool number one. Tool number two, when it comes to gossip's reflection, is an audience willing to listen is also an audience willing to disclose. Whoo, I don't know why. uh, we seem to fail to believe this or to even think about this in the moment in which we're gossiping or in the moment in which somebody is gossiping to us. Um, However, that audience that's willing to listen to us when we're gossiping, especially if they're like, oh yeah, tell me more, and it's just so juicy and they want it. Unfortunately, what happens, hey, what's going on, Key? Unfortunately, what happens is that person doesn't typically hold confidence in high regard. And when you are the gossiper, that's typically what you're eroding with the person you're gossiping to. They're like, yeah, tell me more, but I can't tell this person anything about me because it's going to be all over the street. I have people come to me with confidential information at least 4 times a week. And I think I'm probably lowballing the number, but at least 4 times a week, somebody comes to me and they say, hey, I don't want to share this with the world. However, I want to share this with you and either get your insights on it or have you pray for me about it or whatever it may be. And that is one of the things for me when people come to me with that type of stuff. I'm like, I don't talk to anybody about it. I'm not like, oh, let me tell you or let me tell my closest friend. I'm just like, nah, I don't want to talk to anybody about it because you're confiding something in me. And this is not gossip stuff. This is like stuff that it pertains to their life, things that they are trying to achieve or go through, or they're going through. And so for me, that's what I have had to learn, that those moments when you're gossiping, people don't come to you anymore. And all of a sudden, nobody wants to talk to you about their business. And all of a sudden, people don't feel safe because their fear is that the exact same way you talk about everybody else that is not around is exactly how you will talk about them when they're not around. If you know me, you know that anything that comes out of my mouth, if I say it, I will tell you to your face. And at the end of the day, if we have to put on some boxing gloves and headgear to figure that out, then that's what we just have to do. However, I believe that there's nothing that I can't tell somebody coming from a space of love and appreciation of the relationship that they can't genuinely receive, even if it takes them a little bit of time to receive it. So that tool number two about the audience being willing to listen is also the same audience that is willing to disclose. Realize that you're not just eroding when you're gossiping their belief in your confidence. But as that stuff begins to leak out and it rolls around in the circle of friends or relationships that you have, and it kind of rolls back to you, now all of a sudden you feel like, well, if you gossip too much, you might feel like I can't trust anybody because you don't remember who you told and who you didn't tell and who may have leaked and who didn't leak. Yeah, you don't have to tell that. I have enough friends in my life that know my credibility and they know my character to where if somebody was to come to them and say, Billy told me, my friends would be like, you're lying. Billy didn't tell you that, because I hold confidence in that high of a regard. So that is a really important tool. Tool number two being that the audience that's willing to listen is the audience that's also willing to disclose. So don't self-sabotage your relationships by, number one, getting the reputation of a gossiper, or number two, even if you don't have that relationship, interacting in a gossiping manner frequently with your friends. And then we have a bonus tool within that tool, not just about it eroding your confidence and their confidence in the information, but it's about the stories that you hold of that person, the stories that you hold that are sacred. I'm currently a part of a diversity, equity, and inclusion board at the company that I work for, and we actually have these really difficult conversations. And recently, a couple months back, actually, I did a conversation on microaggressions, and we were talking about microaggressions in this open type forum. And one of the things we lead those conversations off with is like, hey, we want this space to be a safe space to where you can come in and say however you feel. And we're not going to try to beat you up or shun you or degrade you for how you feel or what you think. We're going to try to understand, and we're going to try to reach mutual understanding within the group. And so when you have this mentality and all the things that are taking place, it's easy to leave that group. If you're habitually a gossiper, it's easy to leave that group and disclose everything that you just said you weren't going to disclose. However, what creates or keeps this space of the group sacred, which keeps the relationship of the relationship sacred in between amongst friends, is that knowing that when you're leaving that conversation that you're having with somebody about maybe somebody struggling with suicide, somebody struggling with depression, anxiety, there's finances, all kinds of things you could be struggling with and stressing about, but knowing that that conversation stays in the huddle in which it was had in, that to me is just a liberating feeling when it comes to having friends that understand, hey, look, I'm going to be confidential with you because I know that you're going to be confidential with me, and we're not going to entertain gossip with amongst ourselves. So that is a bonus to that tool, is that you create these sacred safe spaces when you choose to understand that, hey, I'm not going to disclose and be this gossiper because of the fact that, yeah, if I'm gossiping and you're listening, you're probably gossiping and somebody else is listening. So that's tool number 2. Lastly is tool number 3. Tool number 3 is really what I think gossip started off as and grew out of control. That's what we're going to call it. Gossip started off like this, and then it grew out of control. And so the tool number 3 is you can share the lesson without sharing the business. This is something that in a recent conversation with a friend that really resonated with me like a week ago. I'm having a meal with a friend, and we're sitting there and we're talking. And for those of you who know, I've recently written a book, and chapter 1 is available at www.firstrow.com. You can subscribe to the mailing list and download it. Well, they did that. They subscribed to the mailing list and they downloaded the book. And so they downloaded chapter 1, and they read chapter 1. And so we're sitting and we're having this meal about talking about chapter 1, talking about life, talking about all these things. And the friend tells me, it's amazing to have known you for so long and to know these stories, because we had conversations back when I was gossiping, because I was complaining, but gossiping. We had conversations about these experiences, but then to turn around and read this experience completely devoid of identifying information of the individual in which I'm speaking about, and being able to see the lessons that I've gleaned from that experience. They were like, it is just a phenomenal difference. And that is because when we're gossiping, we're not sharing information in order to empower the person who's listening to glean experiences from other people's lives. When we're listening to gossip, we're not listening to information to see what experiences that we can glean information and glean lessons from that gossip session. What we're doing is we're just bringing in idle junk information. It's the junk food of the mind. It feels good. That's why we have celebrity gossip. That's why we have politic gossip. That's why we have music industry gossip. That's why we have all these different types of gossip, because it's junk food for the mind. It just gives me something to think about. It's none of my business, but hey, it feels good while it rolls around. Well, the problem with that is that there's really not a whole lot of lessons that are gleaned in that when your mind is in that state. But when you choose to truly share the lesson, what you do is you again remove all the identifying factors out, and genuinely sharing information can leave any party anonymous. And even if the person happens to know who that party is, that's fine. but it's not because you're making that party the highlight. It might just be information that they know about the person that you didn't know they knew. And so that's tool number three, is really, when it comes to gossip's reflection, the reflection I want gossip to have on me is that I don't gossip. And the reflection that really is important to me is that I find the most efficient way to share the lesson without spreading business that, number one, isn't mine to spread. And number two, is going to erode the safety and the sanctity of the relationships that I have forged. So those are the three tools that I have for you tonight on the first row when it comes to gossip's reflection. Really quick to go over them. Tool number one is be clear as to what gossip is. Call a spade a spade. If you're gossiping, you're gossiping. Call it that. So that way you can choose if you want to gossip or if you really truly want to do something else more productive with your time. Tool number two is an audience willing to listen is also an audience that's willing to disclose. There's no way around, if somebody is interested in the juicy fruit of gossip, that they're not going to want to feel the same. They're not going to want to feel like people feel like they feel when they're gossiping with them. So that's tool number two. The audience willing to listen is also willing to disclose. And then tool number three is you can always share the lesson without sharing the business. If you feel like you can't share the lesson without sharing the business, then don't share the lesson yet, because you haven't figured out how to separate the business from the lesson. You can always share the lesson without sharing the business. So those are the three tools that I have for you tonight on the first row. As always, I like to share a personal story that kind of got me thinking about this topic. And it's funny because I haven't been dating for a long time now, but when I was dating, I was dating like casually dating, trying to figure out who I wanted to date. And I would go on these dates and I would listen to women talk about their exes. And for me, they're like, oh, yeah, he did this, he did this, he did this, he did this, he did this. And of course, all exes are crazy. All exes are stalkers. All exes are horrible people. But what I found was, while I was listening to them talk to me about these people, I was looking for the lesson. What's the lesson in this? And the lesson I was looking for wasn't what's the lesson from the guy that they used to be with, and how can I not be that guy? The lesson was, how does this person speak about people who are no longer present in their life? And what would that look like if things don't work out between us? That was the lesson I was picking up. And that's why I created this as gossip's reflection, because while they're telling me all about somebody else who's not at the table, who already knows them, has gotten to know them, and now has fallen out with them, I'm getting to know who they would be after our relationship, if there was a relationship to take place. And so being aware of that, being conscious of that, really got me thinking about this topic, because I've been that guy who the relationship didn't work out, and oh, well, Billy's crazy and Billy's a jerk and Billy's all these different things. And then the next guy meets me and they're like, wow, he seems like he's kind of cool, but you told me he's crazy. What the heck? And so to meet me and not have and have been fed all this junk information about me, now it's kind of hard for that person to try to like balance that or reconcile that with who I truly am. And really, that's what gossip does. Unless you are trying to bring a solution to the table, or unless you're trying to tell somebody, like a close friend, like, hey, I don't think this person has your best interest in mind, you need to get a conversation on the books with them. Unless you're doing something like that, completely eradicate and make everything anonymous that you can, because what you're doing when you come from a perspective of gossip is you're eroding that relationship. What a lot of people, when I was on first dates with, instead of them telling me about themselves and building up and edifying what value they have, they were unfortunately trying to devalue somebody who wasn't present, and as a result, they were depreciating their value, or my perceived value of who they were as an individual. So that's what I got for you guys tonight. I appreciate everybody rocking with me tonight on the first row. Black Heights, Key. Looks like Bob's in here. Terrellyn's in here. I'd like to shout out everybody who's in here live. I always appreciate you guys coming in on the live. I do have some upcoming announcement. Announcement number one. Super happy about this announcement. It feels weird, but I'm happy about this announcement. The pre-sales for Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion are live. It's exclusively at firstrow.com. That's 1stwroe.com. However, the outpouring of love and support that you guys have shown your boy on the first row, there are no more copies available that are hardcover. We are only doing softcover pre-sales at this time. Look, I'm all for trying to get this content out into the people because they say you got to feed the people. There's tons of information in this book, and I just cannot wait to be having conversations, either personally, one-on-one, or even on lives that I plan on doing in regards to the book in the future. So that's number one. Pre-sales out, hardcovers are sold out. Woo, woo. And if you want to get your copy pre-ordered, they're going to ship on February 15th. But if you want to pre-order your copy, go to firstrow.com and secure your copy today, tonight, right now. Or if you're watching via the replay, right now anyway. Number two is actually this upcoming Saturday. You might be able to see that I'm wearing my Black Heights hoodie. This upcoming Saturday, I will actually be on the Black Heights YouTube channel, having a coffee talk with my brother Antoine Wade of Black Heights, who's in the chat right now. The merch will be live soon. I'll hit you with that in a second. But he's in the chat right now. That coffee chat is going to be the first interview that I am doing in regards to the book, Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion. You want to be there. It's at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're in any times between that, that's up to you to figure out. But we will be on live talking about the book, just having a good conversation. On Black Heights, Antoine and I always have great conversations. I always enjoy our conversations. But this one is going to be extra special to me because it is literally the first time that I'm like out in the world talking about my book on a platform. And I would say Antoine is on a major platform. So that is something to be looking for. If you go to the description in this video, you will actually find the link to that coffee talk on Black Heights. And other than that, the Wednesday word for next week on Wednesday, January 26th, will be on positive evaluations. Man, y'all, I don't know. When I started thinking about this topic, my mind was blown. And it's weird saying that it comes out of my own mind, but my mind was blown. And I think that a lot of people are going to be really impacted in a positive way from this Wednesday word. So you do not want to miss that. That'll be Wednesday, January 26th at 6:30 p.m. So my brother Antoine Wade, the merch, the question about merch, that is on the way. I should have merch in hand by next Friday. That is the goal. We will see how that goal plays out. However, that merch is being designed. I do have First Row hoodies, First Row t-shirts that have the Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion on the back of them, so you can let them know what you're rocking with. But know that merchandise is on the way. As soon as I have that merch in hand, I will release that on my website, and you'll also be able to get First Row merchandise. So that's what I got. I really appreciate you guys for tuning in on the live today. Again, there's just so many things going on in my mind. I'm super excited about this book. I'm super excited about where 2022 is jumping off to. And I really appreciate you guys always showing love to everything that's going down on the First Row. So until the next time, as always, if you like the video, share it. If you share it, like it. I'm happy to engage with you in the live chat. For those watching live, I'm also happy to engage with you in the comments for those who are watching via the replay for up to the first week. After that, I'm on to the next content. But until the next time I see you, one love, peace, and God bless. Thank you for sitting on the First Row.